The twin suns of Kurth Prime blazed down upon the endless golden dunes. Heat waves rose from the sand like ghosts dancing in the afternoon light. The temperature had already crossed 60 degrees, hot enough to cook flesh if exposed for too long. Ambassador Threx stood at the viewing port of the transport vessel. His blue scales glistened with protective oils that his species, the Valorian, secreted in extreme heat. Behind him, 3 other diplomats shifted nervously in their seats. They were all members of the Galactic Trade Council, sent to negotiate mining rights on this forsaken world. The pilot, a 4-armed Keshan named Varric, checked his instruments with growing concern. The navigation system had failed 2 hours ago. Now, they were lost somewhere in the vast desert that covered most of this planet. Their communication array had also gone dark, knocked out by a magnetic storm that had swept through the region. "We should land and wait for rescue," Varric announced. His voice carried the clicking sounds that all Keshans made when stressed. "Our fuel cells are at 30%. We cannot continue searching blindly." Threx turned from the window. His yellow eyes narrowed with worry. This planet is supposed to be uninhabited. The survey teams found nothing but sand and rock. No water sources. No life forms detected anywhere. "The surveys were wrong," said Counselor Mera. She was a Sylvani, her silver skin reflecting the harsh light that poured through the windows. "I have been feeling strange vibrations since we entered the atmosphere. Something lives here. Something old and powerful." The other diplomats exchanged nervous glances. The Sylvani were known throughout the galaxy for their sensitivity to energy fields. If Mira felt something, it was real. Varric guided the ship down toward a flat stretch of sand between 2 massive dunes. The landing was smooth despite the difficult terrain. As the engines powered down, an eerie silence fell over the group. "We should stay inside," Threx said. "The hull will protect us from the heat. When night comes, the temperature will drop. We can send the distress beacon then, when the magnetic interference clears." Everyone agreed with this plan. There was nothing to do but wait. Hours passed slowly. The diplomats talked among themselves, discussing trade agreements and political matters to pass the time. Varric ran diagnostic checks on the damaged systems. Outside, the suns began their slow descent toward the horizon. Then Mira suddenly stood up from her seat. Her silver skin had turned pale, almost white. Her eyes were wide with pure terror. "Something is coming," she whispered. "Something massive. It approaches from beneath us." Before anyone could respond, the ship began to shake. At first, it was just a gentle tremor. Then the vibrations grew stronger. Sand cascaded down the viewing ports as the ground itself seemed to come alive. Varric scrambled for the controls. "The ship is sinking. We are being pulled down." Threx grabbed a support rail as the floor tilted sharply. Through the viewing port, he saw something that would haunt his dreams forever. The sand was swirling around them like a whirlpool. And at the center of that whirlpool, something was rising. The creature emerged slowly at first. Its head broke through the surface like a nightmare becoming real. It was covered in thick armor plates, the color of dried blood. 2 enormous pincers extended from its sides, each one large enough to crush their entire ship. Its eyes, dozens of them, glowed with an inner fire that spoke of ancient intelligence. The Desert Scorpion King had awakened. The monster was beyond anything they had ever seen. Its body continued to rise from the sand, revealing segment after segment of armored flesh. A massive tail curled above its back, tipped with a stinger that dripped something that sizzled when it touched the sand. "By the stars," Counselor Mira breathed. It must be over 100 meters long. The creature let out a sound that was part screech and part roar. The ship's hull vibrated so hard that cracks appeared in the viewing ports. The diplomats fell to the floor, clutching their heads as the sound tore through their minds. Threx forced himself to look at the monster. It was studying them. Those burning eyes held intelligence far beyond what any survey had predicted. This was not just a beast. This was the ruler of this world. The Scorpion King moved closer. Its pincers opened wide, preparing to crush the tiny vessel that had dared to land on its domain. Inside the ship, the diplomats could only watch in terror. They had no weapons capable of fighting such a creature. Their shields were designed for space debris, not for ancient monsters. Then something unexpected happened. A blast of energy struck the Scorpion King directly in its face. The creature reeled back, more surprised than hurt. Another blast followed, then another. The shots were coming from somewhere beyond the eastern dune. A vehicle appeared at the top of the dune. It was small compared to the monster, just a simple desert crawler with 6 wheels and an open cabin. But the figure standing in that cabin commanded attention. It was a human. The diplomats had heard stories about humans, of course. Every species in the galaxy had heard the stories. They were a young race from a small blue planet on the edge of known space. Physically, they were unremarkable. No natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. Yet wherever humans went, chaos and wonder seemed to follow. This human was male, with dark skin baked even darker by the desert suns. He wore simple clothing that covered most of his body, protection against the heat. In his hands, he held a weapon that looked homemade, cobbled together from spare parts and pure determination. The Scorpion King turned its attention toward this new threat. It seemed almost amused. What could one small creature do against its might? The human fired again. This time, the shot struck one of the monster's eyes. The creature screamed and thrashed, sending waves of sand crashing in all directions. When it recovered, there was something new in those burning eyes. Rage. The Scorpion King charged toward the human with terrifying speed. Its pincers snapped at the air, promising a quick and brutal death. Any sane creature would have fled. Any reasonable being would have accepted that survival was impossible. The human drove straight toward the monster. Inside the ship, Threx watched in disbelief. Is he insane? He cannot possibly think he can fight that thing. But the human was not trying to fight, not directly. As the Scorpion King lunged forward, the human turned his crawler sharply to the left. The monster's pincers closed on empty air. Before it could adjust, the human had circled behind it and was racing toward its tail. The tail struck down with deadly accuracy. The human jumped from his crawler at the last possible moment, rolling across the sand as his vehicle was destroyed by the impact. But in that brief moment of distraction, he had accomplished something incredible. He had attached something to the base of the monster's tail. A small explosive device blinked with red light. The human covered his ears and pressed himself flat against the sand. The explosion was not large by conventional standards, but it was placed perfectly. The Scorpion King's tail went limp, severed from its body by the precise blast. The monster let out a wail of agony that shook the very foundations of the desert. The human was already moving again. He ran across the sand with a speed that seemed impossible in such heat. The Scorpion King tried to follow, but without its tail, it had lost its balance. It stumbled and crashed into a dune, sending up a cloud of golden sand. The human reached the damaged ship. He pounded on the emergency hatch with his fist. "Open up. We need to move now, before it recovers." Vorik did not hesitate. He activated the manual override, and the hatch swung open. Hot desert air flooded into the cabin, but the diplomats barely noticed. They were too focused on their savior. "Follow me," the human said. "I have a shelter nearby. It is shielded against the creature's senses. We will be safe there." Threx grabbed the human's arm. "Who are you? How did you know we were here?" The human smiled. It was a strange expression, showing teeth in a way that would have been threatening for most species. But somehow, on a human face, it seemed reassuring. "My name is Marcus. I came to this planet 5 years ago, looking for rare minerals. Found more than I expected. That thing out there has been hunting me ever since. We have fought many times. I know its weaknesses. The Scorpion King was beginning to recover. It turned toward them, eyes blazing with fury. Even wounded, it was still terrifying beyond measure. "Run," Marcus said simply. They ran. Marcus led them through a maze of rocks that rose from the sand like broken teeth. The Scorpion King followed, but its massive body could not navigate the narrow passages. It roared in frustration as its prey slipped away. After what felt like hours, they reached a hidden cave. Marcus pressed a sequence on a panel, and a metal door slid open, revealing a small but comfortable shelter carved into the rock. Inside, the temperature was almost pleasant. Machines hummed softly, processing air and water. Supplies were stacked neatly along the walls. This human had built himself a home in the most hostile environment any of them had ever seen. "You have been living here alone?" Counselor Mira asked. She had regained some of her silver color. "Fighting that creature by yourself?" Marcus shrugged. "It is not so bad once you understand the rules. The Scorpion King is powerful, but it is also predictable. It hunts at dusk and dawn. It cannot sense you if you stay still and mask your heat signature. It is sensitive to certain frequencies of light. Every creature has weaknesses. You just have to find them." Threx sat down heavily on a storage crate. His mind was still struggling to process what he had witnessed. A single human, armed with nothing but scraps and courage, had driven off a monster that could have destroyed their entire diplomatic mission. "Why do you stay?" Threx asked. "You could leave this planet, find somewhere safer." Marcus was quiet for a moment. He looked out through a small window toward the darkening sky. "Because this is my home now. I came here to find fortune. Instead, I found purpose. That creature out there is the last of its kind. It has lived for thousands of years, alone in this desert. It does not attack out of evil. It attacks because it is afraid. Everything it has ever known has died or left. I am the first thing it has encountered that it cannot easily destroy." The human turned back to face them. His eyes held something that the diplomats recognized. It was the same look they saw in their own eyes when they fought for their people. Pride, determination, and a fierce refusal to surrender. "Someday, I will find a way to make peace with it. Until then, I will protect anyone who comes to this world. It is what humans do. We find impossible situations, and we refuse to accept them. We fight, we adapt, and we survive." Ambassador Threx looked at his fellow diplomats. In all his years of service, he had met hundreds of species. He had seen wonders that most beings could not imagine. But he had never met anyone quite like this human. The rescue ship arrived 3 days later. By then, the diplomats had learned many things about Marcus and his life on Karath Prime. They had seen him work, seen him plan, seen him face danger with the same calm focus that had saved their lives. As they prepared to leave, Threx approached the human one final time. "The Council will want to classify this planet as restricted, too dangerous for development." Marcus nodded. "That would be wise. The Scorpion King deserves to live in peace. And you? Will you come with us?" The human looked out at the desert that had become his domain. The twin suns were rising, painting the sand in shades of gold and red. Somewhere out there, the Scorpion King was healing, waiting for their next encounter. "No," Marcus said softly. "My place is here. This fight is not over yet, but someday I will win. Not by killing, but by understanding. That is the human way." The diplomats left that day with a new perspective on the galaxy. They had come to Karath Prime seeking minerals and profit. Instead, they had found something far more valuable. They had found proof that courage and determination could overcome any obstacle. And they had learned why the galaxy should never underestimate humans.